If you are over 60 and you've noticed your strength quietly slipping away, if climbing stairs feels harder than it used to, if your legs feel thinner, weaker, less dependable, please understand this first: you are not broken. What you're experiencing has a name. Quotes called age-related muscle loss, and it happens to almost everyone. After the age of 40, we lose muscle every single year. After 60, that loss accelerates. And after 70, it's not just about strength anymore, it's about independence. But here's the hopeful truth most people are never told. The body can rebuild muscle at any age when it's given the right raw materials. If you are over 60 and you feel weaker than you were 10 years ago, this is not a personal failure, and it is not simply old age, because science now confirms something deeply unsettling. Most aging muscles are not dying, they are starving, and starvation looks exactly like weakness: thinner legs, poor balance, slow walking, and that quiet fear of falling that so many older adults carry but rarely talk about. And research published in journals of gerontology shows that after the age of 60, the body becomes resistant to protein signals, meaning you can eat the same meals you always have and still lose muscle every year, a process known as sarcopenia that affects more than half of adults over 70 and is now considered one of the strongest predictors of disability, fractures, and loss of independence. Yet the most shocking part is that muscle cells do not vanish with age. They shrink because they are no longer being fed the nutrients they require to repair and rebuild. And when scientists examine older muscle tissue under a microscope, they often find intact fibers that are metabolically silent, waiting for the right signals, the right minerals, the right amino acids to switch back on, which is why nutrition quality matters more after 60 than it ever did before. And this is where one overlooked natural food becomes so important, because Moringa leaf powder delivers a rare combination of plant protein, essential amino acids, magnesium, potassium, iron, and powerful antioxidants in a form that aging digestive systems can absorb. And studies analyzing Moringa's nutritional profile have shown it contains all 9 essential amino acids, including leucine, the very amino acid that activates muscle protein synthesis through the mTOR pathway, a pathway that becomes sluggish with age but can still respond when the signal is strong enough. And this is not theoretical, because controlled studies on older adults consistently show that when protein quality and micronutrient density increase, muscle strength improves even without intense exercise, which explains why so many traditional cultures that regularly consumed moringa leaves maintained strength and mobility into old age without gyms or supplements. And when you add moringa powder to coffee, something even more interesting happens, because caffeine increases blood flow and alertness, improving nutrient delivery to muscle tissue, while polyphenols in moringa help reduce chronic low-grade inflammation that silently blocks muscle repair in aging bodies. And inflammation is not just discomfort, it is a biochemical barrier to muscle growth, with elevated inflammatory markers like CRP being directly associated with weaker grip strength and slower walking speed in seniors. And moringa's antioxidant compounds, such as quercetin and chlorogenic acid, have been shown in laboratory studies to neutralize oxidative stress that damages muscle mitochondria, the tiny energy factories without which muscles cannot contract or rebuild. And then there is magnesium, a mineral that over 60% of older adults are deficient in, according to dietary surveys. Yet magnesium is essential for muscle contraction, relaxation, and ATP production. And low magnesium status is strongly associated with muscle cramps, weakness, and fatigue, while potassium supports nerve signaling and muscle coordination, reducing the risk of falls, and iron ensures oxygen delivery to muscle fibers, because without oxygen, even perfectly fed muscles cannot perform. And when people say they feel tired all the time, what they often mean is their muscles are operating in low oxygen mode. And what makes this especially relevant is that older adults often eat less food overall, which means every bite must count, every sip must deliver more nutrition, not empty calories. And 1 teaspoon of moringa powder contains concentrated nutrients equivalent to large portions of vegetables that many seniors simply do not eat anymore, due to appetite changes or digestion issues. And the concept of muscles being starved is not metaphorical, because studies using nitrogen balance and amino acid uptake show that older muscles fail to absorb sufficient amino acids from low-quality diets, but respond significantly better to nutrient-dense sources. And this is why adding a small but powerful food daily can make a measurable difference over weeks, not years, especially when combined with gentle movement, because movement tells the body where to send the nutrients. And even light walking or standing exercises activate muscle receptors that pull amino acids into the cells. And the fear many people have is that it is too late. Yet intervention studies on adults in their 70s and 80s repeatedly demonstrate improvements in leg strength, balance, and walking speed when nutrition and movement are addressed together. And these improvements translate into fewer falls, fewer hospitalizations, and longer independence, which is why sarcopenia is now considered a preventable condition rather than an inevitable one. And the most heartbreaking truth is that millions of older adults are told their weakness is normal, when in reality their muscles are simply undernourished, undermineralized, and understimulated. And when you begin the day by feeding your body something dense, green, alive, and mineral-rich, you are sending a powerful biological message that says survival mode is over and repair mode can begin. And this message matters because the body prioritizes repair only when it senses safety and sufficiency. And while no single food is a miracle, consistent signals create consistent change. And over time, that teaspoon becomes a habit. The habit becomes nourishment. The nourishment becomes strength. And strength becomes confidence. And confidence is what keeps people moving, social, and independent far longer than statistics predict. And if there is one truth modern science and traditional wisdom now agree on, it is this: aging does not demand weakness, it demands better nourishment, and muscles that are fed properly do not give up quietly. They respond, they adapt, and they remind you that your body, even after 60, is still listening. Most people over 60 believe that if their muscles are getting weaker, it must mean something is wrong with them. Yet the shocking reality uncovered by modern research is that the problem is not aging itself, but what modern medicine routinely overlooks, because conventional healthcare is trained to detect disease, not nutritional collapse. And muscle loss after 60 rarely triggers alarms in clinics because it happens silently, gradually, and without pain, even though large population studies now confirm that muscle loss is one of the strongest predictors of falls, fractures, hospitalization, and early mortality in older adults, stronger than high cholesterol or even high blood pressure. Yet it is almost never treated as a nutritional emergency. And this is where the system fails people. Because most routine checkups never assess protein quality, mineral sufficiency, or inflammatory load, even though these factors directly determine whether muscle tissue is rebuilt or broken down. And instead, older adults are told weakness is normal, when in fact studies in aging physiology clearly show that muscle cells remain capable of regeneration well into the 8th and 9th decade of life, when they are given the correct biological signals. And one of the most ignored truths is that older adults are often consuming enough calories but not enough nutrients, creating a state scientists now describe as hidden malnutrition, where the stomach feels full but the cells are starving, and muscle tissue is the first to pay the price, because the body sacrifices muscle to preserve vital organs during perceived nutrient scarcity. And what makes this even more disturbing is that research published in Nutrition and Gerontology journal shows that over 60% of adults over 65 fail to meet basic requirements for magnesium, potassium, iron, and high-quality protein, nutrients that are essential for muscle contraction, oxygen delivery, and repair. And when these deficiencies persist, muscles do not just shrink, they lose their ability to respond to exercise, which is why many older people say, "I walk every day but I'm still getting weaker," because movement without nutrition is like trying to build a house without bricks. And this is where one natural food quietly stands out, not because it is exotic or new, but because it is so nutritionally dense that it contradicts the idea that rebuilding muscle requires expensive supplements or pharmaceuticals. And Moringa leaf powder has been analyzed extensively for its nutrient profile, revealing a rare concentration of complete plant protein, essential amino acids, iron, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and antioxidant compounds, all in a form that is gentle on aging digestion. And this matters because digestive efficiency declines with age, reducing absorption of nutrients from bulky meals, while concentrated foods bypass that limitation. And laboratory analysis confirms that Moringa contains leucine, the amino acid that activates muscle protein synthesis, a pathway that becomes less sensitive with age but does not shut down. And research into anabolic resistance shows that older muscles require stronger nutritional signals to switch from breakdown to repair, which is why small amounts of low-quality protein often fail, while smaller amounts of nutrient-dense sources succeed. And this explains why traditional populations that use moringa leaves regularly maintain strength and mobility without protein powders or gyms, because their daily diet delivered constant micronutrient signals that modern diets lack. And another factor rarely discussed in clinics is inflammation, because chronic low-grade inflammation increases with age and directly suppresses muscle regeneration. And elevated inflammatory markers are consistently associated with reduced grip strength and slower walking speed in seniors, yet anti-inflammatory nutrition is almost never emphasized. And moringa's polyphenols, including quercetin and chlorogenic acid, have demonstrated antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects in experimental studies, helping protect muscle mitochondria from oxidative damage. And mitochondria are not just energy factories, they determine whether muscle cells live or die, and when mitochondrial function declines, muscles fatigue quickly and fail to rebuild. And then there is magnesium, a mineral involved in more than 300 enzymatic reactions, including those that govern muscle contraction and ATP production. And national nutrition surveys show magnesium deficiency is widespread among older adults, correlating strongly with muscle weakness, cramps, and fatigue. And potassium plays a parallel role by maintaining nerve-muscle communication, reducing the risk of misfiring signals that lead to instability and falls. And iron ensures oxygen delivery, because muscles without oxygen cannot perform or regenerate, no matter how much effort you put in. And what makes the story even more compelling is that research on dietary interventions shows improvements in muscle strength can occur within weeks when nutrient density increases, even without aggressive exercise, challenging the belief that rebuilding muscle after 60 is slow or impossible. And this is why the idea that doctors ignore this is not an accusation but a systemic reality, because medical training focuses on drugs and surgeries, not on concentrated plant nutrition that does not fit into a prescription pad. Yet the data exists, the mechanisms are known, and the outcomes are measurable. And when older adults begin supplying their bodies with dense, mineral-rich foods consistently, muscles respond with increased strength, better balance, and improved endurance. And these changes translate into real-life outcomes like fewer falls, greater confidence, and longer independence, which is why public health researchers now describe sarcopenia as a modifiable condition rather than an unavoidable consequence of aging. And the tragedy is not that people age, but that they are never told their weakness has a cause they can address. And when a simple daily habit provides the body with what it has been missing, it sends a biological message that survival mode is no longer necessary, that repair and rebuilding can resume. And while no single food replaces a balanced lifestyle, consistency with the right inputs creates cumulative effects. And over time, those effects change how the body moves, how it feels, and how long it remains independent. And the most important takeaway from modern science is not that we need more interventions, but that we need better nourishment, because muscles do not disappear because time passes. They disappear because the signals that sustain them fade. And when those signals are restored, even later in life, the body responds, quietly at first, then noticeably, reminding us that aging does not require surrender, it requires support. If your legs feel weak after 60, if standing up from a chair requires effort, if you hesitate before climbing stairs, this is not just inconvenience. It is one of the clearest warning signs the body gives before independence begins to slip. Because research from aging and mobility studies shows that leg strength is the strongest predictor of whether an older adult will remain self-sufficient or require assistance, stronger even than memory or heart health. And what is truly shocking is that most people assume weak legs are inevitable, when in reality, scientists now understand that leg weakness is often the result of a broken daily signal between nutrition and muscle tissue, a signal that quietly fades with age but can be restored. And this is where a simple habit becomes powerful, because habits speak to the body in a language it understands, repetition and consistency, and when that habit happens every morning, it sets the metabolic tone for the entire day. And coffee, one of the most widely consumed beverages among older adults, already stimulates circulation, alertness and nervous system activity, increasing blood flow to muscles and improving motor unit activation, which is why researchers observe improved physical performance shortly after caffeine intake. Yet caffeine alone does not rebuild muscle, it only wakes it up, and waking up a muscle without feeding it exposes the problem rather than solving it, because active muscle demands nutrients immediately, and if those nutrients are missing, the body compensates by breaking down existing tissue, accelerating weakness rather than reversing it. And this is why pairing coffee with a dense nutritional signal can change outcomes, because it transforms stimulation into repair, and Moringa leaf powder provides exactly that signal, not as a supplement isolated in a lab, but as a whole food containing protein, amino acids, minerals and antioxidants that work together rather than in isolation. And when researchers study age-related muscle loss, they consistently find that leg muscles are the first to deteriorate because they are large, metabolically demanding, and highly sensitive to nutrient shortages, which explains why weakness appears in the thighs and hips long before it shows up in the arms. And studies on sarcopenia reveal that lower body muscle loss is directly linked to slower walking speed, poor balance, and increased fall risk, with falls now being one of the leading causes of injury-related death in adults over 65. Yet what rarely gets attention is that leg muscles are also among the most responsive to improved nutrition because they contain a high proportion of muscle fibers that remain viable but underfed. And muscle biopsies from older adults often show intact fibers with reduced protein synthesis, meaning the machinery is still there, it is simply idle, waiting for activation, and activation requires two things: a signal to move and a signal to rebuild, and Moringa contributes to the rebuilding signal by delivering essential amino acids, including leucine, which is known to activate the mTOR pathway responsible for muscle protein synthesis, a pathway that becomes less sensitive with age but does not disappear. And this reduced sensitivity is why older adults often fail to gain strength from small protein intakes, yet respond when the signal is stronger and more nutrient-dense. And Moringa's mineral profile amplifies this effect because magnesium supports ATP production, the energy currency required for muscle contraction and repair, and magnesium deficiency, which affects a majority of older adults according to dietary surveys, is strongly associated with muscle weakness, cramps, and reduced physical performance, while potassium supports nerve transmission, ensuring that signals from the brain reach the leg muscles efficiently, reducing instability and misfiring that can lead to falls, and iron ensures oxygen delivery, because without oxygen muscles cannot sustain work or rebuild tissue, no matter how motivated you are. And then there is inflammation, the silent saboteur of aging legs, because chronic low-grade inflammation increases with age and directly suppresses muscle regeneration, with elevated inflammatory markers being consistently linked to weaker legs and slower walking speed. And Moringa's antioxidant compounds help counter this oxidative stress, protecting muscle mitochondria, the tiny structures that determine endurance and recovery. And mitochondrial decline is one of the main reasons older legs fatigue quickly, making people sit more, move less, and unknowingly accelerate muscle loss through inactivity, creating a vicious cycle that feels like aging but is actually nutritional and metabolic decline. And what makes the coffee habit so effective is timing, because morning intake aligns with the body's natural cortisol rhythm, increasing nutrient uptake and utilization during the most active part of the day. And when Moringa is consumed consistently in the morning, it provides a daily reminder to the body that resources are available, that muscle tissue does not need to be sacrificed for survival. And research on dietary pattern interventions shows that when older adults improve nutrient density early in the day, they demonstrate better strength and mobility outcomes compared to those who concentrate nutrition later. And this aligns with circadian biology, which governs how muscles respond to nutrients over the course of the day. And none of this requires extreme exercise, because studies repeatedly show that even light daily movement, when paired with adequate nutrition, can restore leg strength in older adults, while movement alone often fails. And this is why people say they walk every day but still feel weaker, because walking without fuel only exposes deficiencies, and the moment the body begins receiving what it has been missing, changes appear quietly, first as less fatigue, then as steadier steps, then as confidence standing up without hesitation. And confidence is not psychological alone. It is a physical sensation created when muscles respond reliably, and this reliability determines whether people stay active, social and independent, or gradually withdraw due to fear of falling. And public health researchers now recognize that preventing leg weakness is one of the most effective ways to extend healthy lifespan, because strong legs support circulation, metabolism, balance, and even cognitive health through improved blood flow and physical activity. And the most overlooked truth is that rebuilding leg strength after 60 does not begin in the gym, it begins in the kitchen, with consistent signals that tell the body repair is possible. And while no single habit replaces a balanced lifestyle, habits compound, and when one simple daily choice repeatedly supplies muscles with what they need, the body responds because biology is responsive, not sentimental. And when the right inputs arrive consistently, outcomes change. And the story science now tells is not one of inevitable decline, but of missed opportunities, because weak legs are often not a sentence, they are a signal. And when that signal is answered with nourishment, movement and consistency, the body remembers how to be strong, even later in life, even after years of quiet loss, proving that aging does not erase potential, it simply demands better care. If you are over 60 and you feel weaker than you were 10 years ago, this is not a personal failure, and it is not simply old age, because science now confirms something deeply unsettling. Most aging muscles are not dying, they are starving, and starvation looks exactly like weakness. Thinner legs, poor balance, slow walking, and that quiet fear of falling that so many older adults carry but rarely talk about. And research published in journals of gerontology shows that after the age of 60, the body becomes resistant to protein signals, meaning you can eat the same meals you always have and still lose muscle every year, a process known as sarcopenia that affects more than half of adults over 70 and is now considered one of the strongest predictors of disability, fractures and loss of independence. Yet the most shocking part is that muscle cells do not vanish with age. They shrink because they are no longer being fed the nutrients they require to repair and